Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the podcast. On this episode, I sat down with Richard Fay. You know, in these crazy uncertain times that we're in right now, it's super easy to get caught up in the, staying physically fit with all the gyms closed and trying to get everything done that we need to and watching too much news, things like that. But I don't know about you guys, but I've been so caught up in that stuff that I've really forgotten about my mental fitness. And so I thought I need to sit down with an expert in this field who I can learn some knowledge from and gain some practical tips to help me stay mentally healthy during this time and really for our entire life. Richard is a trained counsellor with many years of experience and is also the CEO of the Centre for Men and Families, which is a not-for-profit charity which helps men and their families around Australia who are dealing with crises. Now, Richard is someone who I have personally visited for counselling over the years to deal with my mental health, and I found that he is just such a wise, knowledgeable man when it comes to these topics, and is really good at sharing just practical tips on how we can stay mentally fit as well as physically fit. I reckon this is such an important time for us all at the moment. I learned so much from this conversation and I know that you guys will too. And if we can stay mentally healthy, it's going to play a massive part in helping us achieve those dreams that we're chasing after. So guys, I really hope you enjoy this conversation. Please share this with your friends and family because I know that so many people are struggling with mental health right now. And if you do get value from it, please let me know in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps other people see this channel and grow it so that they can gain value as well. I had an absolute blast sitting down with Richard, so please enjoy this conversation with Richard Fay.
I guess the first thing before we go too far is there's a lot of confusion around what anxiety and depression are. I think sometimes they're intertwined. Sometimes people don't understand. Are you able to give us sort of a quick, as quick as you want, sort of definition of what anxiety is and what depression is?
I'm going to throw a third one in there for you, Rich, and that's stress, and they're not the same thing. So firstly, stress is the pressure that you put yourself under because you feel like you've got to meet certain expectations, internal or external. I need this on my desk by Monday or your job is on the line. There, you've got immediate stress, and that's not anxiety or depression. That's externally imposed stress. Or because you heard that when you were a child, you feel like if you're running 5 minutes late for something, you're getting stressed. That's because you feel like you're going to get in trouble. Now, that's internally induced stress. So that's stress. Anxiety is a more general kind of feeling of foreboding, the sense that I don't have what it takes. The thing that I'm stepping up to is going to demand something of me that I don't have. I don't feel safe in my body. I don't feel safe in my life, and I'm feeling threatened or overwhelmed by life. Similar to stress, but stress is more specific to a certain circumstance. Anxiety is often more general, or it becomes more general. So stress can lead to anxiety over a prolonged period of time. But you don't need to have stressful factors in your life to feel anxious. That's the weird thing about anxiety. And because if you struggle with anxiety from early in life, then you don't know it's anxiety as I didn't. You just think it's life. You just think it's you because your experience of reality is what you think is reality. But it's not. It's just yours, your experience. And so anxiety then cloaks itself in the disguise of your own life, and you don't realize you're anxious, and you don't need to be anxious. There's actually another way, which is to be calm, always, to be internally regulated in the sense that I like my life. It's a good day. Isn't it a good day? Oh, I wonder what's coming next. Oh, this is an opportunity. Here comes a client, a customer, a colleague, whatever it is, a friend, a family member, and I'm not anxious at all, whatever is happening. Depression is sometimes when anxiety is at fever pitch for a long enough period. Our adrenal glands, and that's what's going on with stress and anxiety, is our adrenal glands are pumping adrenaline through our body and cortisol. And these two chemicals in high doses put us in overload. It's like we are always running from a burning building, always running from a bear or a tiger that's going to kill us. But have a look around. There aren't any tigers or lions. There's no real apex predators wandering the streets, even though the news might tell us there are, because you see the worst of humanity on the news. It's actually an incredibly safe time to live in a Western country like Australia. So your body goes on high alert. So depression tips over when I've lived at that heightened state for a long enough period that my adrenal glands just can't handle it anymore. And I just go shut down. The body goes shut down. The body says, I can't do this anymore. Depression is not feeling sad. And that's a big misnomer. That's called melancholy. Depression is often not feeling at all. I just get numb, or I just feel like life is pointless, futile, meaningless, or most often I've just lost the motivation to get up and do stuff. For example, people who are housebound, if they don't keep regular rhythms, regular practices, regular disciplines, the house starts to get messier and messier, and then they look at that mess and go, why bother? And if they start doing that towards the domestic chores, then they can start going, my work, why bother? And then they start going towards almost all of their life, their fitness, their diet, eventually to any kind of practice that might maintain something healthy. It's
just like a slippery slope, isn't it?
It is a slippery slope. And one of the most important things for people with depression is to hold on to a routine, even if you're not getting much out of it. Not a challenging routine, but doing daily exercise, getting sunlight, getting fresh air, getting up and getting showered and getting dressed and eating breakfast, but healthy food, but a regular, steady routine. It's kind of railroad tracks out of depression. You lose those railroad tracks, you get stuck in depression.
And so from what I'm hearing you saying, it's kind of, can you have depression then without having anxiety, or anxiety, it goes anxiety, then that is the body going, no more of this. I can't deal with those adrenal glands just getting flooded. It's just a shutdown. So I guess in this time of uncertainty, there may be stress that's happening with people, like that imminent sort of, there's demands on you. You have to go and, you have to find a job, for instance, because you're out of work. You have to feed the children. You have to, look after, play your part. Is there certain things, I guess, as people that we can go, hang on, that isn't normal? Because as you said, you can kind of go, well, this is just normal life. Are there certain things where you can identify and go, okay, this is anxiety or this is stress?
Yes. So what I didn't mention there is that there's two factors. Excuse me. There's environmentally induced anxiety and depression, and then there is chronic depression that may be genetically inherited from your parents. And so I just wanted to differentiate. There are some people there who've got it when they've got, everyone would argue around them, but you're healthy, you've got enough financial security, people love you, why are you depressed? As we know, some of the most attractive, powerful, wealthy people in the world are depressed. Just look at the Hollywood news. So we know those things are no predictor of not having it. The brain, so there's the environmental induced factors, and some of them are epigenetic. What I mean by that is that something your parents or grandparents experienced as traumatic gets carried into you genetically, because the body will evolve or adapt within a generation and develop receptors towards anxiety or depression if there's enough of a traumatic environment, and you'll inherit that. Now, that can be changed, but it doesn't always change easily or quickly, and it needs to be acknowledged. A lot of First Nations Australians, or all around the world, have got genetically induced trauma from what their forebears faced. And when you have trauma, you're going to do things that are not good for you if you don't know how to deal with it. Now, I've stepped into a new word because I've mentioned stress, anxiety, and depression. Now I'm mentioning trauma. These are the factors that lead to it. As you've said, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. And the brain loves, well, at least the left hemisphere of the prefrontal cortex loves certainty. The right hemisphere doesn't need certainty at all. it lives with what is. But if we live in a very left hemisphere world, our society is very left hemisphere centric. That's the prefrontal cortex up here.
So does that, and to break that down, do we say that we usually say that the left-hand side is the process-driven, logical side, and is the right-hand side the creative side? Is that correct, or am I on?
Simplistic. It is a little pop culture and a little simplistic, but that is the easiest way to explain it is that both hemispheres feel, both hemispheres think, both hemispheres have language, but the left is more interested in generalities and more interested in indexing and describing or explaining. The right hemisphere is more interested in experiencing in this present moment.
Okay.
So the narration of our life comes out of our left hemisphere. The experience, I guess, poetry is much more of a right hemisphere thing, whereas a text, if you were a maths textbook, would be much more left hemisphere. Though the creativity around solving an equation actually strangely involves the right hemisphere. So it's both. And there's a specificity to the right hemisphere. They're very much this. It's very much this moment. And so the brain loves certainty. Why? Because it means that or the perception of certainty, because it means I don't have to spend as much energy keeping safe, because I know what's over the hill and it's not going to hurt me. I know what's around the corner, it's not going to hurt me. But and remember, we human beings biologically are prey. We aren't apex predators. We're not crocodiles, we're not sharks, we're not tigers, we're not lions. We are prey. We're what those creatures eat. We're just intelligent, more intelligent than all the others. And so we can survive because we're so smart. But one of the things that we like to know is that what's up ahead is fairly fixed or certain. That way it's set and forget. The brain doesn't have to do as much work. When it's not, as it is right now, a word we use is it's liminal. Liminal is a Latin word. It means threshold. It means a place of powerlessness. An example of liminality is dusk. It's not day and it's not night. It's somewhere between the two.
Yeah.
Or changing from puberty into adulthood or childhood into puberty. They're liminal because there's a change going on and we're not as certain or in control of our lives because everything's changing. Well, we're in one of those right now as a human species, as a human race. And it is unsettling, but it's also the time when change happens. Because not only is everything else externally is changing and in flux, then I have to pay attention to what's going on in me. When it's set and forget, when it's all certain, I can ignore my life and just ramble on through it, which is not a good thing to do, but we do tend to do it.
Yeah.
Get out
just
of
go on
bed
autopilot.
And we miss our lives. That's why suffering is not necessarily bad, as we sometimes understand it. Suffering is an agent of great good when we allow it to reflect, become self-aware, and notice that actually we were never in control. If I wanted to use big words here, God is in control, but I'm not. I could die in 10 seconds of a brain aneurysm. I had no certainty over my life. And I'm even thinking, Scripture kind of says this, nothing can separate us from the love of God. Even all these bad things could still happen. We're not separated. We're not disconnected. Suffering actually doesn't disconnect us. Suffering connects us more deeply. We feel at the shallow level a lot less connected because we've got this uncertainty, which causes us to go deeper into where we are truly connected.
I was watching an interview today, and it was, I don't know if you've heard of Rich Roll at all. So he's I think he's about 50-something-year-old fella, but essentially, I don't know his full story, but he got into this around his late 40s. He got into endurance athlete, like endurance events, so where they go and run 250 miles nonstop through the bush somewhere. Sounds awful to me, but he loves it.
Please no.
Yeah, and he's sitting down with what you call a celebrity, and they were saying one of the things that we've both figured out is the path to having a living your life well and having a happy life, I would say the path to true happiness is through suffering. So they're saying it's, we feel so fulfilled when we go and do these events. And there is an element of suffering where, you're at your 180th mile and every part of you is aching. But it's when you get on the other side of that, they said, I've never felt more fulfilled or happy. And as you were saying before, like this, we kind of have this, the world tries to tell us suffering's bad. And there is suffering that is bad.
There is definitely suffering that is bad. Well said.
Yeah.
For example, a child who's being physically or sexually abused by an adult is as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
And there's nothing good about it.
Exactly.
But a lot of the suffering that we call bad is actually life. And it can be used. I don't know that I call it good or bad. It just is. And it's a mystery because all of life and the big issues, they're all mysteries. They're all mysteries that we have to trust that there is something greater or truer in it, that there is love underpinning it. But suffering is I'm not really suffering going bald, but I'm facing my demise. It's approaching me.
I'll tell you how
there we are.
I can give you some road tips if you like.
You're ahead of me.
That could be another podcast.
The follicular podcast.
Yeah. So in this time, where there's so much uncertainty in our brains going crazy. What do you think if we do find ourselves kind of starting to experience, because I know in my personal journey, I've come and seen you before around I did exactly what we were talking about before. I had this element of, I'm just feeling all this pressure and what I would say stress. Oh, that's just normal. That's just life. That's just me, trying to figure stuff out, be busy. But it did get to a point where I think my body went, no, this is not normal. And there was a definite point where I had to say, and it was actually Denny, my wife as well, went, this is not normal what's going on here, which I'm very thankful that I had a wife who could kind of look at that from a different set of eyes. But is there a way, or are there certain ways that you found where people that may not have somebody who's able to speak into them can kind of reflect and go, am I okay here? Am I doing okay?
Here's a few. Do you get really annoyed by small things, like triggered by things that most people wouldn't get triggered by? Leave me alone. Don't interrupt me. I hate it when people interrupt me. Now, that's a very strong emotional response. That's often around anxiety, or you feel like you're not going to do things because you don't feel safe, like the phobia is like flying, or I'm just better staying at home. Obviously, flying and staying at home right now, there's reasons to not do it, like the government won't let you, but ordinarily those aren't rational. And in fact, flying is the safest thing, and leaving your house is dangerous, but not really. I mean, living is dangerous. As I said, I could have an aneurysm sitting in my chair. So getting on with life is important. So noticing when you're turning down invitations, often you're retreating into yourself. That's around depression. Or being overly reactive. That's around anxiety. Sleep is an interesting one. If I really struggle to get to sleep at night, that could be anxiety. I can't slow my mind down. It's always racing. Or I wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and I'm wide awake for hours and hours and my mind is racing again, starting up. That's more depression. So when our sleep goes out, overeating or undereating, or I'm self-medicating. Overeating and undereating can be a sign of depression. Being driven is a sign of anxiety. I have to do everything. I have to be on top of everything. I have to be managing everything. I'm running through my life and I won't let anyone tell me to slow down. I have to get it all done. I don't know what it is that's telling me that. It's anxiety. Overeating and undereating, that's more of a sign of depression, except if I'm highly caffeinated and having lots of sugar, that's more anxiety. So it's interesting. These things go all over the place.
It's interesting what you just said there about the anxiety could be, I have to do everything. I need to get it done. I found myself and I don't know if this is necessarily anxiety that I'm moving into, and I've noticed in other people, but in this time especially, it's like, okay, I have to be on top of all this information. I need to know what's going on. We have to go and we have to be completely stocked up in the kitchen from everything. We've got to make sure all this is happening. And at the same token, I've got to make the most of all these opportunities and run. So I think for a lot of people, they can, in that time, think, oh, I'm being productive because this is what the news is telling me to do. But I think it can be, there's a spiral there that you can go, you're just going crazy.
Toilet paper is a classic case in point. Let's build a toilet paper fort and keep us all safe from the virus or something.
Yeah.
There was never going to be a shortage of toilet paper, and of course the shelves are stocked again. But I'll show you how this works. If the house is on fire, I shout fire. I shout it. Why? Because I want to keep safe. So I'm in a survival part of my brain. And so the messages that we notice with politics, they use at election cycles, they use fear to tell you how to vote. And we will find it very difficult to go against those impulses because they're louder than the calmer ones, which are saying, it's good and this is going to be fantastic. We get fearful, and so we're driven by fear and anxiety. We're driven by fear. And so you'll listen to the news cycle so often and social media. It's so often fueled by fear. And the stock market, which crashes at the first sneeze, is again driven by fear or greed. You know, when it's going up, everyone wants to get on board, fear of missing out. And when it crashes, it's FOMO, fear of not getting FOMO, fear of not getting out. It's fear both times. Greed is actually fear masquerading as something else. And it lives when it's like we're not able to be internally parented or parent ourselves. And news is offering us some fake certainty, but it's never, ever a good certainty. And of course, remember, a lot of them or most of them are selling a product. And if fear sells, then they're getting advertising revenue because you read the clickbait. The clickbait says record number of deaths in America, and I click on it. And it might have gone up by 10 from yesterday, but it said record number, and that grabbed me. That was the clickbait. And of course, what's this mean for my life? Well, fortunately, I'm sorry for anyone in America who might be listening to this, but fortunately in Australia right now, we are not in that scenario, and yet we get bombarded by it. And I read the news headlines. Then rarely are they saying, we've got this. It's going to be fine. We're going to get over this. Yes, some people tragically will die, but we as a nation we as a people will find ways to get on top of this. We'll work together, and new good things will go. You see it occasionally, but often you don't. So, avoiding news cycles. Gosh, that would be, or limiting it to maybe 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. Limit it to half an hour, because you'd be surprised how fast that time can go. Do not go on your phone for the first half hour or the last half hour of a day. Avoid or social media or news media for the first half hour or the last half hour. Instead, go somewhere quiet, somewhere peaceful, somewhere beautiful. Find your breath, slow it right down. See if you can find some gratitude within you. Notice the way use a sense. That's really helpful. Like the sense of touch, if the breeze just blows against your skin, or the sense of sound if I hear a bird song, a sense of taste if I'm eating something slowly and really savouring it, and so on. Using a sense.
It's amazing that sense, using that. It's just a quick little tangent. There was when I kind of was going through, I would say it was depression, where I just was struggling to feel, you just go, and I just want to have some sort of emotional response here. I remember being at the beach, and as it was going dusk, and sitting there, and there was something, I can't remember if it was after one of the sessions I did with you or something I learned online, but it was this, use the sense. And I just focused on that feeling of the wind against kind of my hands and my face. incredible. I was just, and
Yes.
you just sit there, and I just focused on that. Something about
Yes.
that just brings me back,
Yes.
It didn't fix everything in an instant, but kind of just takes you out of your head. Not took me out of my head. What am I trying to say? It took me out of
takes you away from your distracted self.
Yes.
Your restless, distracted self. So I'm going to go back to the hemispheres. I'm going to mention a name here, Dr. Ian McGilchrist. He's an English psychiatrist, and he wrote a book called The Master and His Emissary. And it's based on, well, the title is based on an old fable about a master who was mute, and his emissary would go into his domain and do the master's bidding and explain everything the master knew. He was the only person who understood the master. He knew nothing of himself, and would have to go back to the master, but the master would be quiet and still and calm and in his tower. And he'd have to go back up into his tower to hear from the master and then go back out. And he thought he knew stuff, but he never did. He was always busy and distracted. He'd have to sit quietly with the master to remind himself, or be reminded, what is real and what is valuable. You see, when you connect with a sense, you're going to the right hemisphere, which is very specific, very this touch. And our brain, we think we can multitask. Even women can't actually multitask. They just switch faster than men. Men are so if you distract a man from a task he's doing, he often won't even notice you're calling him. My wife goes, Richard. And I go, try Richard, wait 10 seconds, and then say another Richard. Don't do three in a row, because I didn't hear all three of them, because I'm in a task.
Yeah.
Women can switch, but no human being can multitask. And we don't notice how often we switch. When you sat there by the water and felt the breeze on your skin, your whole being settles as you focus on the breeze on your skin. And it's okay. Depression has been called anhedonia. Hedonism is the pursuit of pleasure. So nothing gives you pleasure. Anhedonia means no pleasure. And pleasure is often in our society about what's the new Netflix show, or what's this event, or what's this holiday, or what. We are now being reduced to seek out very small pleasures like autumn light casting long shadows, or the breeze against my skin. Something as simple as that. And discovering that, like we did as a child, those things can mesmerize us and make us come alive.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, even where our house where I am now, our bedroom window, it's a big window and it looks west. So you see the sunset.
Yes.
I've made it a point to kind of, and I miss it often because you're just doing things. Often you'll walk upstairs and the whole house is orange, and I'll just kind of go, all right, I don't care what I'm doing now for the next 5 minutes. I'll just sit on our bed and just watch it. And there's just something about, it's not an intentional sort of meditation time, but there's just something about stopping and watching that. And there's been times where I've tried to, say to my wife, Danielle, come and look at the sunset. And she's busy doing something, making dinner or something, doing something for work. But the times where she has come up and we've both sort of sat there, it's such a simple thing, but we just don't. There's just so much more distractions coming at us in this crazy world.
That's so true. You think about this, watching a show, I'm sending an email, I turn out the light, I'm supposed to go to sleep. And yet that's not how nature does it. And we're part of nature. So what nature does is it undresses gradually and gracefully. It lets light fade away. It takes about 45 minutes, even longer, closer to an hour, even longer if it's twilight around further away from the equator, for the light to really fade, wash away really slowly. And you listen to birdsong and it celebrates these two. It's the same as the beginning of a day, celebrates the morning and the evening. The shift from one state to another is done gradually and gently. We should do the same with ourselves, with our bodies, with our awareness. Yesterday, I was out in the garden yesterday afternoon. It was a glorious golden glow. And I had
beautiful.
to stop, wasn't it? And it especially so around autumn, winter, and spring. Take time to soak it up and let it do a good in us. And what is it doing? I don't even know. All I know is it's grounding me.
Yeah, it kind of it's almost like a reset. I find it is. It's kind of like you've gone from the craziness of the afternoon. I'll sit there. And it's incredible what you just said about even like the birds celebrating. We've got a whole bunch of kookaburras, and so they, like clockwork, they just go ballistic. It's just a party up on the power line somewhere, and they just go nuts. But something about that, I don't know what it does, but it sets me in a good place then for, if I'm up there for 10 minutes, I'll then come down, and I find that even my interactions with Denny, my wife, then are so much more calm. And I'm not distracted while I'm talking to her. I'm sort of, one-on-one. It's just soaking in that moment. Yeah, it's
more
really
intimate. It's all more intimate within you. It's more intimate with her.
Yeah.
And there's a tenderness that comes, and you feel it in you, and it feels so good to be in that place, doesn't it?
Mm. The flip side is if I come downstairs after that and the TV's on loud, there's noise going on, there's people next door and there's loud cars, it can be quite overwhelming in the senses to go, okay, let's be calm right now. We've had that moment up there. Let's take this one step at a time. So it is interesting how those small moments are so valuable for us.
Yes. Yes. No, so they're very good strategies for guarding or protecting ourselves from anxiety that becomes out of control or depression, which wants to get a hold. And there is a correlation between the two, not always, but often. And I myself have experienced the switch from anxiety into depression just because my body just gave up and went, no, sorry. We're doing a reset here. We're not letting you run the show anymore. We're going to run the show. And the depression was basically saying, oh, sorry, no, you're going to sleep for 14 hours. No, you're not going to get out of bed. No, you're not going to do all those things. Until you listen to us, we're going to really pull in the reins. It's actually, strangely in that regard, depression can be, not always is, but can be a gift if you listen to it.
Yeah, it definitely was for me. I think it definitely forced me, as you say, to reevaluate what am I doing? Take a step back and go, everything that I've been potentially striving for and everything that I've been doing, what's the deeper purpose behind that? What's the meaning behind that? And how can I live truer to myself and less my mind just racing because the way that the world is telling me it should race, and more, like that, things like the sunset. I think before I was in a darker place and took the time to talk to people like yourself who could give me the tools and equip me with this, I would never have appreciated that moment. I probably would have looked at it and gone, that's nice, but not actually gone, no, this is doing good for myself. Yeah.
Here's the thing, you mentioned kookaburras. So one of the Aboriginal nations believes that the kookaburras would laugh in the morning, sending the spirits of the night back to bed and calling out the spirits of the day, and in the evening would do the reverse, call out the spirits of the night. And the spirits were good spirits. These were spirits that wove together their dream time, their storytelling, their magic, where they found deep meaning. And when you think about that for countless thousands of years, those kookaburras have been laughing to people in this land, and I'm a part of that. And also puts into context my own fears and worries. They're very temporal. own life is only, 70, 80, 90 years at best. And I could then think there's a futility to my life if it's only about achievement, production, outcome, output. Oh my goodness, I'm on a treadmill or one of those, ferret wheels that's spinning round and round and round, hamster wheels.
Yeah,
and I'm just exhausted doing it. I don't actually stop and ask, why am I doing it? Meaning comes out of identity. And identity is about being part of a much broader story that's shared with others in my life and also spans not just generations, but eons. And I'm grounded then by practices that are sustainable, that make my life sustainable. So when I hear currawongs, particularly around dusk and dawn, I'm taken to my childhood and where my grandparents lived in Sydney and lying in bed listening to currawongs, and there's something incredibly sacred about that because somehow all of my life becomes enfolded in their song. It's not the same currawongs, but it is to me because my ears, it's generations of currawongs in my lifetime, somehow calling out something that makes my life feel sacred. I don't know any other word for it than sacred, but there's something reverent about it, something truly awe-inspiring, something beautiful. And I want to spend much more time savoring that and honoring that as if, it's not that I can be a star, but that I can be part of something far bigger than myself. I'll use this analogy as the Assyrian proverb. They take the boys out into a field and fill their pockets with dirt and put their hand in their right pocket and say, feel the dirt in there. Be humble, you are made of the earth. And put their hands in their left pocket. Be noble, you're made of the stars. Both are true. And so one of the rites of initiation of adolescent males would be to take them out into wilderness and get them to watch the stars at night and be able to know the constellations, name the constellations, understand their journey, their story, the story that they're telling of their people. Not to be a star on a stage winning some, reality show, because that's what currency has become. Social currency's become celebrity. It's meaningless and it's soul destroying. It gives monetary wealth, but as we know, on its own, monetary wealth is futile on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, it's those speaking of those stars, you just took me to a place where I remember we went camping up at like Rainbow Beach sort of area, which is, near Fraser Island. And so it's not even that really far out, but there's not much light pollution there. And I remember clear as day, even though it was nighttime, ironically, but sitting on a camp chair and the tide was as far out as it could possibly be. So essentially it was myself and 3 friends, really close friends, sitting on a camp chair really at the water's edge, but, sort of almost mud flats in a way. But we sat there for hours, well into 3 o'clock in the morning, because all you could see was stars. And you would be talking to your friend and you would get distracted by the light of a shooting star. It was incredible. But that time, there was something, as you said, sacred about that time. Like even we talked about it in the next day. We couldn't explain to each other what that meant. And we weren't even saying that much because we're guys, so we don't even really talk about that much with each other. You say 5 words and you're exhausted. But it's hard to explain, but it is just soaking in that moment, not thinking about tomorrow or what my big dream or goal for the future is. It's more just in the now and understanding, man, I'm a flash in the pan when it comes to this whole story,
Yes, yes. It's so beautifully put, Rich, that you just said. There just weren't words, not just because we're men who don't use a lot of words, but also because words are just fall so far short. I've sat beside the bedside of someone dying and was aware that words were irrelevant at that point. Presence is something else altogether. Something mysterious and profound is happening here, and I'm a part of it. And that's all I want. In fact, I'd pollute it with words. And yet somehow after the event we have to talk about it, so we do. And we do it often with music or story, poetry, creative expressions of what it means to be human and what this mystery is, this jars of clay that we drag around. What are they? And what are they holding? What a mystery.
What are some ways that we can start to practice that, do you think? I know we're going on a lot of different sort of tangents here, which is 100% fine. I love going on tangents. I think it's all valuable stuff. But for so many people, that it's hard to kind of allow your mind to stop, to take in those moments. What do you think are some ways that people can start to practice that?
If they've got anxiety and depression, the first port of call would be to talk to someone who has expertise in handling those things. Family members obviously can help you get there, but don't listen to family members who tell you you just need to pray harder, or you just need to believe, or you just need to, grow a pair, or whatever it is they tell you to do. Those things don't work. And they're not very helpful. I've sadly come across a lot of that. And often I don't even know, but I think there seems to be misunderstanding or fear about talking to a therapist, a counsellor, or a psychologist. But obviously that's a very important thing. It's a scary thing to go solo into nature on your own, but it's a wonderful thing, and I've had a practice of doing it for many years. Because the problem is your shadow shows up. That's language people listening may not understand, but shadow is that part of ourselves that we deny. I mean, if you told me something about me that I thought was either too good to be true or too bad to be true, that'd be my shadow, if it was true. If you said something to me and I defended myself, how could you say such a thing? You can guarantee, because there's an energy, because I'm defending myself, that's shadow, that it's stuff, parts of me that I cannot see and I have to defend equally. So it's a dark shadow or golden shadow. Golden shadows, the bits I do like. And so going into nature alone is very scary at first. So you need probably someone to help you work with that. A wise old sage, an Obi-Wan Kenobi, someone who's been around the traps a bit and is aware of what can show up when you go into nature. To use, again, a piece of scripture, the devil will show up, but that's because the devil was probably, or those voices were already in there, but you're drowning them out with all the noise of your life. When you go quiet, you start hearing them, and you can then start challenging them. You can start finding a different voice or a truer voice below all of the noise. And it's really helpful to find that, but you may need to go either with somebody, and you just mentioned you went to Rainbow Beach with a couple of mates. There it is. They helped scaffold your experience because you were sharing it. That can be really good.
What do you mean?
Sorry, you go.
What do you mean when you say going into nature? So are you talking for like if we're going to get really practical here, are we talking like your practice, for instance? How are you talking about for an extended period of time?
Yeah, at least 3 days alone, no phones on, you're not seeing any other people, not watching TV, not watching movies. You're not taking DVDs with you so you can binge watch a series. That's not time in nature. Time in nature is where you are spending, perhaps you've got really just a backpack and a swag, or you might have a bed to sleep in at night, but you spend all of your day outside, not reading books, actually watching and learning from nature. Nature is an extraordinary teacher. an extraordinary teacher. It offers us a benevolent hospitality. What I mean by that is it says, come and join me if you'd like to, but you can't show off. We don't care about your achievements. We don't care how many letters are after your name or how big your bank balance is or how good looking you are. You can be fat, thin, old, young. You can be anything. You can be Calathumpian. You can come into nature and it just says welcome and get on. And it gets on with doing what it does. And if we can be truly present to anything in nature, being truly present to that thing in nature will change us in a profound way. I spent 2 to 3 hours listening to a rock. Now, which is the stupidest thing I think I've probably ever said, except it's also very profound. This rock told me a whole lot about itself, but I had to be quiet and pay attention to it. And yes, I was projecting my consciousness onto that rock, and that rock becomes like a sounding board. It waits for me. It waits to see if I'm going to be humble enough to let it speak. A tree, a bird, a goanna, an ant will do it. Now, don't suggest you do this for 2 or 3 days or even longer at first, unless you're an extreme introvert. You might probably only want to do it for a few hours.
So speak to that a bit more. So for people potentially listening, and even myself, when you're talking about how you spoke to a rock for 3 hours and you're projecting that onto it, what did that practically, if you can even explain it in practical terms, but what did that, is that just you sitting there in the presence of this rock and it's your subconscious that is sort of processing things?
My subconscious is translating what I'm hearing the rock say. Is the rock speaking? I don't know, and I don't care if it is or isn't. I'm experiencing the rock speaking, and that's all that matters. Perceptions are everything here. Because if I try to go to the logical, critical function of my brain and go, well, this is stupid, a rock's dumb, it can't speak, I've already shut down any possibility of experiencing something. But we are tangible, we are embodied beings, and we need to relate to an embodied world. So what it involved me having a pen and a journal. It involved me being quiet and still and aware and allowing whatever comes, creating enough of a space and seeking a sense of permission or welcome. It's as if I was treating this rock as an old grandfather, like someone very, very precious and valuable and wise. And then it's as if I've opened up a space to allow that which is ancient and wise speak within me. And the rock is somehow saying, what did the rock say? Things like how it welcomes heat and cold, dry and wet. And it gives gently and slowly to water. Water conquers by yielding. And the water is conquering this rock over time and shaping it as it yields to the rock and kisses the rock. The rock had bugs and lichen and spiders and ferns and all kinds of things growing out of it, and it let those things grow out of it. It had a hospitality. It didn't say, no, you can't come here. Go back to where you came from. It didn't holler anything racist to anything that existed. It was solid. It was dependable. It wasn't going to roll around the mountain and be a threat to anybody. It wasn't going to create problems. It was just simply going to be present in its environment. It was going to stay. It wasn't going to be restless. And I could spend the next hour writing what I journaled.
Yeah.
But in my restlessness, I needed to hear a lot of what it said. In my judging of things I didn't like, I don't like this, I want that, I don't want this. This rock didn't have any of that. This rock in ways had wisdom my own life failed to express or understand. So I learned from a rock.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
It's really quite strange, isn't it? But I have a dear friend in America, and right now the restrictions, he's in Missouri, the restrictions prevent him from even going to his tree. It's an old cottonwood tree in the park across the road from him, which he calls grandfather. And he sits in the hollow of this tree, and he finds that this tree welcomes him and allows him to be there, and dare I say it, speaks to him. and this tree came before him and will be there long after him. He's now in his 70s, and this tree will outlive him. This tree existed before he was born. There's something lasting about that tree. Is the tree a metaphor? Well, yes, but it's an embodied metaphor. It's a physical presence in his life. And I'm probably not even planning to go on this tangent, but you probably didn't think I would.
I'm all for it.
There you are.
Keep going. Yeah, it's great.
Mystery.
As you're speaking, you know Rob Jones. So he kind of, I've had experience. I did a course through ACOM, and he was he was my spiritual leader in that. I think that was his name. So we used to go, I think it was once every 2 months, to his place out at the sort of southeast Queensland on some property there. And he started off, we would chat in the morning. He would sort of take us through something. And then the first time we were there, he said, right, for the next 3 hours or 2 hours, go and find somewhere on the property, and no phones, no nothing, just silence and think. First time I did that, I was like, what are we doing here? Like, I can't do this. There's distraction after distraction. You're thinking through everything. You're thinking through what story am I going to make up that I can tell the group that I had this great experience when I get back in 2 hours, things like that. By the last time we did it for the whole day, so that's still not that long of a period, but he told me, because I'd said to him, look, I'm really struggling to kind of connect here and make the most of this time that I have by myself. So he said, go and sit near the bee. He was a beekeeper. He had beehives. Yes. I said, well, why is that? He said, well, just go and sit there, look at what they're doing. So, okay, whatever, Rob, I'll go and do that. And so I sat there, and 2 hours passed, and just bees in a box. But then after a while, I started noticing the routine of these bees. They would come out, some would fly, then they would come back, and there was this real sense of order. And then you would notice that the smaller ones, which are, from what I understand, they'll go and fly the furthest amount. They'll come back, and they would help the bigger ones do this and then. And after a while, I started to go, this. So I think they were speaking to me in a way. I started thinking through, these people, these bees, they help each other unconditionally. There's no, you were nice to me today, therefore I'm going to help you today. It's just, I have to do this, otherwise we all die. That's just what's going to happen.
Yes.
And so I started I got so much out of that. I started going, how do I help people unconditionally? How can I have more of that? So anyway, that was about the extent of kind of what I got out of it. And then when I went back to Rob, I talked to him about this. He said, well, why do you think I told you to go and sit next to the beehives? Because that's what I do often. And so he was saying that he does it so often now and for longer periods of time. He knows exactly when the little babies are ready to fly, and he can watch the adult bees, I think that's what you'd call them, teach them to fly. And there's this whole system. And I think he was just saying exactly what you're saying. Those bees have taught him so much about his life that he wasn't able to put into words. And that was another tangent from me there. But when you first started talking about the rock, I was like, oh, what the heck? I don't understand this. But the more that you explain that, I've gone, I have had those experiences in my life.
You have. And you'll find an intimacy in the sense that the bees are somehow your friends now, and they're speaking to you at a very warm part of you. There's a poem by David White, Everything is Waiting for You is the name of the poem. And one of the lines is to feel abandoned, which is often the sign of anxiety and depression, but especially depression. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely at times you've felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. The intimacy of your surroundings. He closes up by saying, all the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you. There's another poem, and he says that humans are the one part of creation privileged to refuse our flowering. Well, the one part of creation privileged to refuse our flowering. In other words, all of creation is what it was created to be, except humans, who have the power to be other than what we were created to be, to our own destruction, to our own misery.
Yeah.
And it's only when we can reconnect with nature and watch how it is what it was created to be that we are reminded to be what we were created to be. It's a slow and gentle process.
That's so true, isn't it? You don't see many dogs that are sitting down miserable because they go, "Oh, I wish I had the agility of a cat." They're not all sitting there, "I don't want to get out of bed," because they just go, "You know what? I'm a dog. What do? I chase cats." Let's go.
And my dog's a Lhasa Apso. He's a tiny little breed, but don't tell him that. He thinks he's just... In fact, it's interesting, just talking about that, dogs smell each other's butts, and the reason they do that is they get age, gender, and health of that dog. And dogs revere older dogs. They revere the older, not the stronger or larger or faster. They revere the older. Isn't that a profound wisdom that dogs have? And my dog shakes when he gets up. He knows physically he just shakes to get off whatever he's carrying. You know, he's doing a tay-tay thing. He's shaking it off.
Shake it off. That's fascinating about the dogs, though, that they respect and value their elders.
Yes.
I think I would have thought, oh no, they're a pack animal. Of course, it'd be the strongest. But no, it's that. Yeah, that's really interesting.
It is extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah,
and as you say, they don't compare and they don't compete. They might be territorial. That's about as far as it gets. But they're more. When my dog takes a leak on a tree, he's actually leaving his business card. It's saying, "I was here."
Yeah. This is my place. Definitely. Yeah, that's
funny. It's
funny, amazing. It is amazing, and I'm going to go and do some more research now into that whole what nature can tell us, because I think as we sit in our concrete cities or concrete jungles, that we are so far removed from that. Yet we are still so close because you can look out the window and look at the sunset. You know, that we just that's
an American author, Randy Frazee, wrote many years ago. He said, when we developed these metropolitan areas in the 1940s and 50s in the post-war era, we didn't ask should we asked could we, and the answer was yes, we can. And so we paved out a world where the cities are spread and spread and spread, whereas the European village idea, where everyone lives in close proximity but is never more than a few hundred meters away from nature, was much more sustainable and much better for community, because that's where we need to be. And yet, as you say, you've got to get in the car and drive for an hour often to get I walk every day, especially around dusk. I'm going to today into nature around my home, and I need it. I need it daily, and especially with this isolation. This physical, I don't like the word social isolation. I've taken it out of my vocabulary because we're socially connecting right now.
Yep.
It's physical isolation or physical distancing, not social distancing.
I think that's an important distinction to make. A lot of people, aren't necessarily making that distinction.
Yes. In fact, you notice how people intuitively need to connect, and depression disconnects us. We feel disconnected from everything. And by staying gently connected to rhythms, to nature, to those who care for them, to the experience of those senses, we will be restored. Obviously, I haven't mentioned medication, and for many people, medication, as it was for me 11 years ago, medication becomes a tool in the arsenal of overcoming anxiety or depression. It isn't the panacea. It isn't like taking a Panadol. It's not going to make you high or happy, and it's not going to fix it. And it isn't addictive. It's just something you might need for a period of time, like scaffolding on a building while we refurbish the building. It just holds it in place. And not everybody needs it, but some people benefit from it. I kind of wanted to say that because I hadn't said it up until now.
Yeah, it's important to say. So you mentioned, I guess as we finish up here, because I want to be conscious of your time, it's been so valuable, the time and the wisdom that you've shared already. Things that people can do just very quickly, things like going for a walk. We're all stuck inside. If you're starting to feel these things, or to prevent feeling these pressures and anxiety, I guess just get out, go for a walk, even if it's 10, 15 minutes.
So for an hour this afternoon around sunset and dusk, I'm walking with a friend, and I can't go into his home. He can't come into my home, but the two of us can go walking. And it's strange. I think walking is the new sitting. We can't sit down at a cafe, but we can order a takeaway coffee and go walking.
Yeah.
And so for a little while there, we all kind of got frozen into, what do I do now? I do nothing. And we're starting to thaw out of that and go, actually, I'm able to walk, either with a family member, on my own, or with a friend. And particularly if you live alone, go walking with a friend. Here's something I heard from a submarine captain, a retired submarine captain. The submarine would go underwater for months on end, and he learned, always keep the submarine tidy. As soon as you start to let it go, everything goes.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do that, but keep in your regular rhythms some order and tidiness and cleanliness around where you live, so your standards don't drop and you just become apathetic, because it becomes, that's too hard, or I'll put it off to another day, and all of a sudden you start putting off your life or the things that give you life.
Simply just making your bed. One of the things that I found.
Simply just making your bed shifts your mental energy for the day.
Yeah, the way I look at it is, I go, if I make my bed, first thing we do, if the whole rest of the day turns to crap, I've achieved something. I made my bed in the morning, and I get to at the end of the day, I get to sleep in one of my achievements. So I go,
well said, beautifully put. That is absolutely true. You started your day well. And I start my day, some have a shower at night, but I always shower in the morning and dress, and then we'll go into nature before I do anything else. Whether it's just sitting on a veranda and looking with a soft gaze. A contemplative exercise could simply be put a timer for 10 minutes. That'd be the absolute minimum. Otherwise, you won't achieve any rest at all. And watch with a soft gaze something in the, maybe a couple 100 meters away, or even 100 meters away, a tree, the sky, the way light falls on it. Or you can close your eyes and you can just pay attention to your breath. I use a sacred word, which I don't say, I'm just aware of this word. That word could be love, grace, mercy, peace, kindness, beauty. Or it could be a word connected to your faith. God, Yahweh, love, Abba, Father, Jesus, whatever word you want to use. And just be aware of that word gently. And as you breathe out, notice that you're surrendering your life. You're dying. You're practicing dying. And every time you breathe in, you're receiving life. And your life lasts only one breath. And so let your breath go and receive your breath, and stay with that sacred word gently for 10, 15, 20 minutes. And if you find your mind going, I've got all these things I've got to do. No, this is about here and now, and I'm just going to let them go for now. I'm practicing letting go, and I'm reminding myself that I'm a human being, not a human doing.
That's.
And if I do a simple thing that reminds me that I'm a human being, I am being human. Human is humus, is earth. I'm reminding myself that I came from it and I'm going back to it. And this moment, I've got this sacred breath in me. I'm animated by the breath that animates me, that breath came from somewhere else. It did not come from me. And I'm acknowledging it, being grateful for it, and letting it go. And the more I can do that, the more mysteriously wonderful things happen in me. The less attached I am to specific outcomes, the more I need to be in control, the less certain I need my world to be okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is people are going to get so much value out of this conversation, I reckon. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your generous time today, Richard. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. And just quickly, so you're a counsellor, you do counselling. If people wanted to, while listening to this, they go, you know what, I think I do need to go to get some professional help on this. If people wanted to come and see you, for instance, where is the best way for them to contact you or to inquire about that?
My website is really simple, richardfay.com.au, and you just go onto that website, you'll find me. I'm also the CEO of the Centre for Men and Families, which is a not-for-profit charity helping men and their families in crisis around Australia. And that website is cfma.org.au. So both of those, richardfay.com.au or cfma.org.au. And you'll find me, and you'll find more that you could. We run Men's Rites of Passage and Young Men's Rites of Passages, and we're actually now embarking on Women's Rites of Passage, which is really exciting. So love this work that I do. But thank you, Richard. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, it's been amazing. So, yeah, if anybody's listening and they go, you know what, I need to go and get some help, then those are the places to go to, and or other places, whatever's the best place for you. But thank you so much again, Richard, and thank you everybody for listening. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.